So let's talk about your original motivation. Why did you want to become debt-free in the first place?
Well, it's funny. I always say we didn't have a choice. When you have that much debt, Andy, you cannot live. There is no semblance of a life when you have $500,000 of debt. So that was a big factor of it. And two, I grew up in a house where money was a struggle. I know what that feels like on the kids. I know what that does to a marriage. And we were just determined to have a different outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what type of debt was this? What was 400? How do you accumulate 460,000?
Well, it was mostly consumer debt. By far, 90% of it was consumer debt. My husband did have a small townhouse that he went into as an investment with his mom. I think it was 100,000, but 280,000 of it was student loans. Andy, if you can believe that. Of course, we had the credit card debt, 20,000 in credit card debt, and the two vehicles that we couldn't afford. So definitely what I would say normal in some ways. I know a lot of folks don't have necessarily $280,000 in student loans, but we see that number, it's creeping up higher and higher for most Americans. So it's a
Yeah,
lot.
absolutely. Was there a moment that you and Sam, something hit you and just said, "We got to make a change"? What happened?
What happened was we moved. We got married, and the first year of our marriage, ignorance is bliss, right? You haven't really combined everything yet. You're just enjoying each other, and as we started combining money, and we had an opportunity to move to South Florida, and there's something about a move that you start. Writing everything down and seeing what you have and taking inventory of it. And that combined with the fact that our student loans were starting to become due, it was just a recipe for enlightenment and also disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you guys do to start making some changes at that point?
Yeah, I say all the time, when you have that kind of debt, it's easy to blame a lot of people, right? You can blame the student loan industry, you can blame your parents, you can blame your high school because it's like, oh, we didn't learn this in high school. If only we had learned how to budget in high school. And so we went through that where you're just blaming everybody, but then we hit this point where it's like, okay, you cannot blame your way to a better life. You've got to start making changes. And so we did. I remembered a guy named Dave Ramsey, and I remembered hearing him on the radio. And so I told my husband, I said, there's this guy, Dave Ramsey. I think he can help us. And so we went over to Barnes and Noble and we picked up the book, The Total Money Makeover. We picked up the workbook for him and we started working through it, and it was like, okay, we need to submit to this plan. This is our way has not been working, and so we need to find another way. And that's where it all started, and we started submitting to that plan, and before you know it, we were starting to make headway with that debt.
Yeah, well, I also I'm very familiar with that plan, as it helped me and my wife get out of debt as well. Thank you. Shout out to Dave.
Yeah.
Question with that. Obviously, there's two levers you can pull during that process: the increase in the income part or decrease in the expenses. Did you do both? Did you do one more than the other? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think for most people it's a little bit of both. And for us, it was mostly on the income because when we started, my husband and I were both musicians looking, when you're a musician, it's hard. You're starting out, you're gigging, you're trying to figure out what your actual career is going to be. So when we started, we were only making an income of about 30,000. And knowing that we had all of that debt, we knew immediately that we needed to increase our income. And so at first, it looked like a lot of supplemental work. I sold cupcakes at one point. My husband was training dogs. I was working at a vinyl tint and lettering place. So anything we could do to get our income up. Of course, we sold everything in our house, Andy. At one point, we had no furniture in our house. Anything we could do to make income, increase our income. But then our focus shifted to, okay, long term, because I don't want to be baking cupcakes for the rest of my life. I don't want to be, side hustling for the rest of my life. And so then we focused on how to really translate our skills into a business of our own. And that's really when things started taking off, is when our personal business started taking off. And so we were able to throw more money to that debt snowball quicker.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
was it the accumulation of the side hustles and the supplementary work where you said, well, actually, I could see myself doing this specifically more in order to make more money? Or were you guys already having another business to begin with?
Well, I heard somebody say early on, if you want to be effective in leadership, you have to learn how to multiply and duplicate yourself. And that really stuck with me. And as an entertainer, I said to myself, what does that look like? Because I can only earn so much money. I can only do so many gigs. I can only go so many places and perform. So what does that look like? And for us, it meant, let's do a talent agency. Let's get as many people in the doors as possible and let's send them out to do the work that we don't want to do. And for us, that's what it looked like. And yeah, we were able to multiply not only ourselves, but also multiply our income. And I think that's what it's about. When it comes to side hustling, I always suggest for people to find things that are already related to their current skill set, things they already know how to do, they already enjoy doing and they're already very good at doing. It's probably something that they're already in that area and they can find a service to offer there.
Yeah, and then figuring it out how to scale without burning yourself out, right? I mean, it
That's
sounds like
right.
you can only produce so many gigs. I see you do a Mad Whitney Houston. You can do the Whitney Houston so many times before you got to get somebody else
Yeah.
to help out, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely have to start thinking long term. But it is a lot of you touched on the fact that it's a lot of work, it's a lot of sacrifice, and you're right. You can only sustain that for so long, which is why speed is so important when you're trying to get out of debt. You've got to do what it takes to pay off that debt as quickly as possible because no one wants to live scorched earth, for a decade. No one wants
Yeah.
to do that. I mean, for us, 7.5 years was about it. But most people are able to get out of debt within 12 to 24 months. And so that's what the numbers tell us.
Yeah, I think this is a delicate balance, though, because you guys have this beautiful talent of music. And I fear that sometimes when people are like, okay, well, I need to make more money, let me just lean into the thing that I'm good at or that I like to do almost as enjoyment or a hobby. But then you push so hard that you might burn yourself out. Did you guys get to a point of burnout with some of the things that you used to enjoy? And how did you deal with that?
That's a really good question. I would say that there were moments that it felt close to burnout, but I think those are the times where you have to connect back to why am I doing this? What's the end game? And I say all the time, you behave like you believe. So if you believe in what that end goal is, if you believe you can accomplish it, then that's really what pushes you through those times where it's like, oh my God, I'm tired. Can't I just, can I just phone this one in or can I just call in sick or, all those moments, you've really got to connect back to that why. You've got to connect back to what was the reason that we set out to do this to begin with. And if you believe that that's worth it, you will continue through those moments.
That's great. And I understand that as you're talking about this, you and Sam seem to be great partners in that aspect. Were there any tips or hacks that you guys had as a couple that made this process easier?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I would say is you got to combine your finances. I've been reading the statistics on that, and it's interesting. I found that only 43% of married people combine their finances, which might sound like a lot to some people, but in the end, I feel like, man, that's actually not a whole lot considering the benefit that we know comes from combining finances. I read a stat that said that couples that combine their finances build wealth 4 times faster. And part of that is because they're more likely to purchase a home together, right? And then it says that they build more trust, and overall those couples are happier. And that's the verbiage that it used. And I thought, man, that's really interesting. If more people knew that, I think that they would dive in and share their finances together because you're communicating about one of the most important things in this world, which is your money. And if you can
Yeah.
get on the same page with that, you can do a lot together as a couple.
Yeah, I like harmony. I like happier. Those are all really good words when it comes to marriage. There's been times where I felt maybe a little bit more selfish or things like that, and
Yeah.
that comes into my mind. Well, I worked hard for this. I want to use it my way,
Yeah.
and that only lasts so long. Where it feels like a partnership anymore. It feels like we're on this mission together,
Yeah.
and I quickly want to go back to that our us mindset
Yeah.
because that helps us to have that harmony, that happiness in our relationship. So
Absolutely.
you and Sam are an absolute great example there. Talk to us about when you paid this off, and did you guys celebrate? What was different in your life?
We did celebrate. It was right around the fall, and I remember we came down to what was then Financial Peace Plaza, which was, where Ramsey headquarters was, and we came to do our debt-free scream. You've probably heard it on the Ramsey Show. Everybody counts down 3, 2, 1. We're debt-free. So we did that, and our family was there. And afterwards, Andy, it was Black Friday, and so I was like, okay, we're going on a shopping spree. Mom, you get what you want. My sister, you get what you want. Of course, Sam and I, we had such a good time, and it was one of those times that we had a certain budgeted amount, but we made it pretty high so that we could just enjoy and not think about it. And that made the sacrifice totally worth it. Because over the past 7.5 years, it was saying no to new jeans and no to a new pair of shoes and just no to those everyday kind of basic things. And it was so cool to have that day where it's like, I like that purse, I'm gonna buy it. Let's go out to lunch. I am not gonna look at the price first. I'm just gonna pick what I want on the menu. So that was just a really fun time.
That's incredible. Now, is it surreal for you now working for Dave Ramsey and his awesome company? Now, having gone through this experience, do you think that now that you're in the shoes of educating people on this topic, that you are, I guess, more excited about it because you have gone through this.
Well, yeah, when Sam and I were going through this, I had no idea what was on the other side, right? You're just doing this trying to make your life better for your family. I don't want to say self-focused or selfish, but it's very self-focused. You want a better life for your family, and there's nothing wrong with that. As more and more people started discovering our story, I started realizing like, hey, this wasn't just for us. Like, this is other people can learn from this, and other people can be inspired by this. And I think that's just the life lesson that I've taken away from this is whenever there's something that you're struggling through, wherever there's something that is a pain point for you and you've overcome that, it's probably not just for you. It's probably for you to take that, share it. Other people are going to learn from it. Other people are going to be able to grow from it. And I just think that's one of the great things about life is how, you can take these struggles and your bad break can turn into your big break.
I think it's great. I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people like to dog social media or the internet or whatever, the news in general, but I think you can be the positive news. You can
Yes.
be the good stories out there. And Jade, you're sharing that with us right now. Talk to us about what does it mean to not have $460,000
Woo!
of debt in your life, and what does that mean for your future now?
Oh, it means everything. When you've probably heard Dave Ramsey say this a million times, your biggest wealth building tool is your income. And when you're giving that away month after month and payment upon payment, you can't build wealth. You don't have the margin left to really give towards your retirement or just building wealth. And so now that our income is totally freed up, it's great. I mean, it's allowed us, we were able to save for a down payment and purchase our first home with peace, not overspending and not getting caught up in the craziness of 2020, right? We just were able to purchase that in a peaceful way. We were able to buy yet another vehicle in cash because we had the margin to save up. And, as the baby steps go, we're investing 15% into our retirement. And that's really fun to watch. So this is what I call the good part, Andy. The first few
Absolutely.
baby steps are about, that intensity, and it's just like, oh, I gotta go, I gotta go. But then once you get out of that, it's just like wide open space and you get to breathe and you feel that ease of financial peace. And so that's what I hope that people take from this, that they can go from that angst of payments and debt just to that ease of financial peace.